Sydney, answer me. Why is there a prominent socialite couple I have never met living in the $2.5 million glassbox estate I purchased specifically for your architectural firm? Grandmother Evelyn's question cut through the laughter of the Christmas Eve gala like a shard of ice. A heavy silence smothered the room. Across the table, my father Mark dropped his crystal wine glass, and the red liquid flowed across the white silk tablecloth like an open wound. I stopped my hand halfway to my mouth, the silver fork trembling. My grandmother's gaze pierced straight through the center of the room, skewering my sister Brittany and then our parents. Having just returned from 3 years in London, Evelyn seemed even more formidable than I remembered, wrapped in an aura of power that made the air feel thin. Grandmother, what did you just say? My voice was a thin thread. The words sounded completely unreal to someone like me, who had spent the morning checking my bank account and seeing a balance of only $8.42. I thought you heard me, Sydney. I am talking about the modern sanctuary in the Pacific Northwest. The estate I bought for you 3 years ago to launch your career. Her voice was calm, but beneath it, I could feel the heat of boiling magma. Grandmother, there must be a mistake. I summoned every ounce of courage to speak while my heart hammered against my ribs. I do not own a house. I do not even have a lease. I am currently sleeping on a pull-out sofa in a studio apartment because I cannot afford rent. What? My grandmother's eyebrow twitched, and I knew the storm had arrived. As soon as I landed, I went to the estate as a surprise. You were not there. Instead, I found the parents of Brittany's husband. They told me they were staying in a home owned entirely by their daughter-in-law, Brittany. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Brittany's hand shaking so violently she had to set her glass down. Brittany! I turned to her, my mind racing. Her eyes darted around the room, and her breathing became shallow. Grandmother, Brittany cried out, almost screaming. That is a misunderstanding. You must have the wrong address. You just flew in, and you are clearly exhausted. That is right, Mom. My mother Kimberly jumped in, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. It is just jet lag. Your memories are mixing things up. Come on, the lobster is getting cold. Be quiet. My grandmother's shout slammed down like a physical blow. Everyone at the table flinched. My mind is perfectly sharp. The architecture, the glass walls, the custom steel. It was exactly the house I signed for. And more than that, she reached into her clutch, pulled out a photograph, and slid it across the table. This is what Brittany's in-laws said to me. They said they were guests in a house gifted to Brittany by her loving parents. The color drained from Brittany's face. In the photo, she stood in front of the glass box with her husband and his wealthy parents, all of them smiling. I stared at that photo, doubting my own eyes. It was the same house Brittany had posted on her social media months ago with a caption about her new luxury retreat. At that time, I was working 16-hour days on freelance designs just to buy groceries. That was my house. Mom, Dad, what is happening? Grandmother bought that house for me. So, why have I been living like a beggar? My father looked away, his jaw tight. Sydney, it is complicated. It is Christmas Eve. We do not talk about money at the dinner table. We can discuss this in my study tomorrow. No, we are clearing this up right now, my grandmother said. Sydney, do you truly mean to tell me you knew nothing about the $2.5 million estate or the funds I sent for its maintenance? $2.5 million. The room started to spin. My balance this morning was $8. I had sacrificed sleep, my health, and my youth, watching every penny disappear into debt and basic survival. $1 million was a number I could not even imagine. I know nothing, I whispered. I have never seen that house, and no one ever told me it existed. My grandmother's expression softened for a split second, a flash of pure pity crossing her face, before it was replaced by a hard, lethal stare directed at my parents. Mark, Kimberly, you told me Sydney was mentally unstable. You told me she was incapable of managing assets and was suffering from a severe psychological burnout. You said you would act as her guardians and manage the estate on her behalf until she recovered. I could not believe what I was hearing. Dad, when was I ever unstable? I graduated at the top of my class. I have worked every single day. I have never asked you for a dime of help. Sydney, calm down, my mother said in a low, warning tone. There was no love in her eyes, only a cold command to stay silent. You're getting worked up right now. See, this is exactly the instability we told your grandmother about. Do not you dare. I stood up, so quickly my chair crashed to the floor. I am perfectly sane. You are the ones who are sick. When I could not afford my car insurance, you told me I was lazy. When I asked to stay in the guest room for a week, you told me I needed to be an independent adult. And all that time, you were living off my inheritance and giving my home to Brittany. Sydney, how dare you speak to us this way? My father slammed his fist on the table. We did it for your own good. You do not have the ability to manage high-value assets, so we entrusted them to your sister. The absurdity of it made me feel numb. Oh, shut up, Brittany snapped. A boring, plain worker bee like you does not deserve a masterpiece like that house. We were just putting it to good use. You should be thanking us for keeping it in the family. Brittany, my vision blurred with rage. This was my family. These were the people who were supposed to protect me. Enough. My grandmother's voice cut through the shouting like a blade. She rose slowly, leaning on her gold-headed cane, and walked toward me. She placed a hand on my trembling shoulder. Sydney is right. All of you are rotten. You are nothing but hyenas who fed on your own daughter's life. Mom, you're going too far, my father said, his face twisting. We did everything for the sake of the family name. My grandmother looked down at him with pure disgust. There is no family here. There are only thieves. Tonight, everything ends. She pulled her phone from her pocket and pressed a single button. Come in, please.
Right now.
The massive front doors of the mansion swung open, letting in a gust of freezing night air and a tall man in a charcoal suit. It was Mr. Sterling, her lead attorney. He carried a heavy leather briefcase. Mrs. Evelyn, I have brought all the documents and the forensic evidence as instructed. What is all this? My father stumbled back. Mark, Kimberly, and Brittany, my grandmother declared. I am going to walk through every single fraudulent act you committed, one page at a time. I wiped a tear from my eye and lifted my head. The warmth of her hand gave me a strength I had never felt before. This was not the time to cry. This was the time to hold the scale of justice. In the dead silent room, I let out a small, cold laugh. I stood up slowly, shedding the mask of the victim I had been forced to wear for years. I looked down at my family with eyes that felt like flint. The acting is over, grandmother. Yes, it is, Sydney. I have been thoroughly entertained by their lies, she replied, stepping to my side. My father and mother were speechless as they realized the trap had already snapped shut around them. Wait, Sydney, why are you laughing? My mother asked, her voice thin and wavering. Don't you see? I said, my voice dropping to a low, icy register. You were being played the entire time. I stepped around the table, the adrenaline washing away the last of my fear. A week ago, grandmother reached out to me. Not through the family phone line you monitor, but through my old college roommate. She told me she suspected you were intercepting her letters and deliberately isolating me. From that moment on, we knew everything. That is why we set the stage for tonight. We waited for the moment you felt safest, surrounded by your rich friends, to let your guard down and confess your crimes with your own mouths. What? My father went pale, his hands fumbling with the edge of the table as he tried to stand. Sit down, my grandmother commanded. The single word pinned him to his chair like a physical weight. This is only the beginning. Mr. Sterling, please. Shall we start with the illegal transfer of the Glassbox estate? Mr. Sterling slid a heavy, laminated document into the center of the table. This is the real estate registry for the property known as the Glassbox. It was originally purchased by Mrs. Evelyn in the name of Sydney. However, the current registered owner is Brittany. The transfer occurred 3 years ago for the price of $0. A gift. $0. That was the price of my entire future. I stared at the date on the paper. It was the exact week I graduated, the moment my life began to derail, while I wondered why no one would hire me. I always knew something was wrong, I said quietly, looking my father in the eye. I had the highest honors in my department. I had recommendations from the best architects in the country. And yet, every firm I applied to rejected me without a single interview. My father's eyes darted toward the exit. Around that time, anonymous emails were sent to every major architectural firm in the city. They claimed Sydney was a plagiarist and suffered from severe mental instability that made her a liability on a job site. You pushed me into poverty on purpose, didn't you? Because if I became a successful architect, you wouldn't be able to keep using my name to fund Brittany's lifestyle. It was for your own good, he stammered, his face a mask of desperation. And you, Mom, I said, turning to my mother. I finally understand why my credit was destroyed and why every credit card application I made was denied. Mr. Sterling produced a stack of bank statements. These show that every cent Sydney deposited into her student loan account was automatically redirected to a hidden account under Kimberly's name. You stood there and told me I wasn't trying hard enough. You told me to be more like Brittany while you were stealing the money I earned from 3 different jobs. You blacklisted me. You forced me to live in fear of the streets while you sat in this mansion. My mother covered her mouth, her eyes welling with fake tears that no longer worked on me. My poverty was not bad luck. It was a cage you built for me. And then there's you, Brittany. I looked at my sister, who was still jutting her chin out in defiance. My in-laws needed a place to stay, she snapped. The house was just sitting there. What is wrong with letting family use it? You let them stay there for free? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Of course, she lied. They're family. Mr. Sterling didn't say a word. He just laid down another set of records. These are the monthly deposits of $5,000 from Brittany's in-laws to her personal account. The memo on every check is rent. So, you stole my house, lied about it, and then charged your own in-laws $5,000 a month to live there while I couldn't afford a $10 meal. Brittany's eyes darted away, searching for a way out that didn't exist. My father leaned forward, his voice oily and pleading. Mom, listen. Maybe we were a little heavy-handed, but the house is well-maintained. We can give Sydney a consolation payment and settle this as a family. A consolation payment? My grandmother's voice was a low growl. You spent 3 years crushing Sydney's spirit and living like royalty off her talent, and now you think you can buy her silence? But Mom, Sydney is still young. Hardship builds character, does it not? Shut up. My grandmother's roar echoed off the glass walls. I wrote to Sydney every single month for 3 years, asking if she liked the house. I never got a reply because you told me she was too mentally unstable to even pick up a pen. I shook my head, the weight of the lost years pressing down on me. I never received a single letter. Not one. Of course you didn't, my grandmother said, her eyes burning with a cold fire. They intercepted every piece of mail. They built a wall of lies to keep us apart, so they could keep their hands in my pockets and their boots on your neck. Everything finally fell into place, revealing the full ugliness of their betrayal. It was time for the final act. Enough with the excuses, I said, taking a slow breath and signaling to Mr. Sterling. Let's confirm the legal facts for everyone present. Mr. Sterling displayed a high-definition image of the transfer agreement Brittany had been using to claim ownership of my life. Brittany, you claimed this document was a legitimate transfer signed by me 3 years ago, correct? I asked. Yes, look at the date, she shouted, her face drenched in sweat. It says 3 years ago. Indeed it does, Mr. Sterling replied, pressing a button on his tablet. A magnified image of the paper fibers appeared on the large screen behind him, revealing a pattern of tiny, microscopic yellow dots. This is a machine identification code. Most high-end color laser printers embed these dots to record the printer's serial number and the exact date of printing. After a digital forensic analysis, we determined this document was printed exactly 6 months ago. The room went deathly silent. Why would a contract supposedly signed 3 years ago be written on paper that did not exist until 6 months ago? I asked with a cold smile. The truth is simple. This document was fabricated recently. I looked at my father, then my mother, and finally at Brittany. I know exactly why you panicked 6 months ago. That was when grandmother contacted you and said her work overseas was finishing and she might return home. You realized that once she came back and checked the property records, your house of cards would collapse. You couldn't ask me to sign it because I would have asked questions, so Brittany forged my signature and backdated it. My father clutched his head and groaned, finally hitting the mark. Mr. Sterling pressed on without mercy. Handwriting analysis shows a 99% probability that this signature belongs to Brittany. This is clear forgery of a private document, fraud, and embezzlement of $1 million from Sydney's maintenance fund. Prison, Brittany whispered, shaking uncontrollably. This cannot be real. Dad, say something. You were the one who told me that as long as we backdated the paper, it would be fine. You idiot, shut your mouth. My father roared, but it was far too late. The police have already been notified, Mr. Sterling said calmly. Criminal charges are being filed as we speak. No, no, no. Brittany grabbed her head and burst into tears. Dad told me to do it. He said Sydney was stupid and would never notice. He told me to just copy the signature. Brittany, you're selling out your own father? My father screamed. But it is the truth. Mom said it too. She laughed and said Sydney would never repay her debts anyway, so we might as well use the money ourselves. It was a painfully ugly spectacle. The people who had been preaching about family values moments ago were now hurling accusations at each other like hyenas. My grandmother watched with cold, detached eyes. "That is enough," she said. "I have seen enough of your true nature. Do not stain this Christmas table any further." She turned to Mr. Sterling. "The revision to my will is complete, correct?" "Yes, Mrs. Evelyn." He produced a new set of documents. "This latest will fully revoke all inheritance rights for Mark, Kimberly, and Brittany. It designates Sydney as the sole heir to the entire textile estate." "The entire estate?" My parents shouted in unison, their pride vanishing instantly. "Mom, please. We are sorry. We had a moment of weakness. If you want to apologize, do it to Sydney," my grandmother replied in an icy voice. "She is the victim here, not me." They all turned to me at once, their eyes pleading and fawning, still assuming that because we were blood, I would forgive them. I slowly lifted my wine glass and took a small, deliberate sip. Then I smiled sweetly. "No, I do not possess mercy. The only thing I have for you is an invoice." I accepted the final document from Mr. Sterling. "This is a formal demand for restitution of $2,500,000 for the property theft, plus $2 million in damages for emotional distress and the loss of my professional career. If this total of $4,500,000 is not paid immediately, we will proceed with criminal prosecution for every count of fraud and forgery discovered tonight." $4.5 million? My father screamed, his voice cracking with desperation. "There is no way we have that kind of money." "Then sell what you do have," I replied, my voice as cold as the winter air outside. "Sell this mansion, sell your cars, sell your jewelry. And that glass box estate? You will have Brittany's in-laws vacated within 72 hours. "No." Brittany collapsed to the floor, her expensive gown bunching around her. "If I kick them out, my husband will divorce me. I have nowhere else to go." "That is none of my concern," I said, cutting her off before she could beg. "When I was sleeping on a sofa and skipping meals because you destroyed my credit, did any of you worry about where I would go?"
"No."
"You laughed and called me a failure. Now it is your turn to taste the misery you built for me." At that moment, a heavy knock echoed through the foyer. 2 officers in dark uniforms entered the dining room. "Brittany Hansen, you are being charged with identity theft and forgery of a legal document." Brittany screamed as they pulled her up from the floor and placed her in handcuffs. Next, the officers turned to my parents. "Mark and Kimberly, you are being detained for conspiracy to commit fraud and embezzlement." "Sydney, please." My mother sobbed, her face a mask of ruined makeup as they led her toward the door. "We are your parents. We love you. Tell them to stop." "Goodbye, Kimberly," I said, not even granting her a final look. "You can spend your time in a cell thinking about how much that love was worth." As the sirens faded into the distance, only my grandmother, Mr. Sterling, and I remained in the vast, silent dining room. I let out a long, shaky breath. It was not exhaustion. It was the feeling of a curse finally breaking. "It is over, grandmother." "No, Sydney," she said softly, pulling me into a warm embrace. "This is where your real life begins." 1 year has passed since that Christmas Eve. I am standing now on the cedar deck of the glass box estate. This place is finally mine, truly mine. Brittany was sentenced to 3 years in prison, and my parents lost everything, their reputation, their home, and every cent they had stolen. They are living in a cramped apartment on the other side of the state, but I do not know their number, and I never will. As for me, I have turned this sanctuary into the headquarters for my new firm. I focus on architectural justice, helping young designers protect their intellectual property from the very kind of predators I escaped. My income has grown 10 times over, and I have achieved the complete independence they tried so hard to take from me. On weekends, Grandmother Evelyn comes to stay. We sit by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the sun set over the mountains, reclaiming the years that were stolen. She told me recently that I did not just reclaim my future, I built a fortress out of the ruins of my past. This is my home. This is my life. And for the first time, I am truly happy.